Shaun King, who's this pasty-looking fellow, is probably making stuff up again. So this all started a couple of days ago when Hamas released 2 of the hostages they took when they invaded Israel on October 7th. They still have almost 200 hostages, by the way.
Good afternoon, and we're coming on the air with major developments in Israel's war with Hamas. ABC News has now learned that 2 American hostages have been released and are safe. We had reporting that they were going to be released, but we wanted to wait until we knew they were in safe hands, and we have been told that that has happened.
And Shaun King, who's that perfect combination of self-obsessed, shameless, and completely crazy, decided to come out of nowhere and make it all about himself, because he tried to make the entire war all about himself. His wife actually posted this picture a few days after Hamas invaded. I snapped this picture of Shaun King yesterday. He was about to write his first post about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. He was sitting on the couch in my office, gathering his words, research, and videos, and suddenly got up and went to the window. He was overwhelmed by it all, and just needed a moment to breathe and reflect. None of what he does comes without a price. The images he shares, the stances he takes. For days, so many people were pulling on him, asking why he hadn't posted. People from both sides. Years ago, he would have done so without a second thought. Today, he's well acquainted with the consequences of taking stands against the establishment. We've lost so much, and much of it has been excruciatingly painful for our entire family. I'll always be proud of him for doing what's right, though, especially when it's not easy. #FreePalestine. You think people in Israel and Gaza have it hard right now? Shaun King has to tweet while white. And so after these 2 hostages were released, Shaun King took credit for it, because of course he did. So on October 10th, Shaun King posted a picture of one of the hostages, saying she and her family are supporters, and because she's on his side of the political aisle, she deserved to be released, because you see, she's the right type of Jew. Here's what he said. This is Natalie Raanan. She's a teenager and is believed to have been taken hostage near Gaza border this weekend. She's an American citizen and just graduated high school in Illinois earlier this year. Her dear family has asked that I help them find her and bring her to safety. Natalie and her family are supporters of mine, protested against police brutality in the United States with me, and have spoken out against injustice in Israel. I believe we have confirmed that she was not killed in Israel, but we are just asking for proof of life right now. The family wants her to be alive, but if she's been killed, we'd like to know this too. If she's alive, I can confidentially help broker her return. Please send me proof of life or death. Please release her. I'm asking. Then he gave his email, your friend and brother, Shaun. And when news broke that she and her mum had been released, he said this. Hamas just freed the teenager Natalie Raanan and her mother. I'm grateful. As I said last week, Natalie and her family have been supporters of mine and protested police violence in America alongside us. I am also thankful for the Qatari government for helping to negotiate this. Dozens of us worked frantically behind the scenes to help make this possible. I spoke to Natalie's family this afternoon, and they are anxiously awaiting more updates. Just one little problem. The family came out and said they'd never heard of him. Here's their full statement shared by Yashar Ali. Today we came across bizarre posts on the Instagram page of one Shaun King, who turns out to have millions of followers, who claims that our relative Natalie Raanan supports the anti-Israeli messages he uploads to his page. First and foremost, we make it clear that he is lying. Our family does not and did not have anything to do with him, neither directly nor indirectly. Not to him and not to anything he claims to represent. Natalie told us that this morning it was the first time in her life that she had come across Shaun King's name and his posts, after she finally got a phone call after 2 horrific weeks in captivity in Gaza, and was looking for what was written about her while she was away. Shaun King is trying to catch a ride on the great exposure that her kidnapping received all over the world, and in the US in particular. And the most ridiculous thing is that Natalie and her mother Judith are very active in Rabbi Hecht's Jewish community in Chicago and in the Chabad house, and if Shaun King knew them or their family, he would know that. We ask not to be quick on the keyboard and share things without checking them in depth. Mainly not to believe people who speak for others. The damage that the sharing of these lies does is so huge, and the effort of our family and all the families of the abductees should be focused on bringing them home, and not fighting the lies that are being spread like wildfire. We're not done, we've just started. We have 2 more murdered in the family, and 8 more family members still kidnapped. And there are over 200 more families in our situation. Now we need the support of all the people of Israel and all the countries of the world to bring everyone home as soon as possible. And now I want to take you through the Jerusalem Post coverage of this because, yeah, it's just wild. So this is the Jerusalem Post article, Did Shaun King help get American Israeli hostages released from Gaza? Shaun King, an anti-Israel social media activist with a large online following, has claimed that he aided in the release of 2 US citizens that were kidnapped by Hamas. Judith and Natalie Raanan, who are citizens of both the United States and Israel, were released by Hamas yesterday evening after being abducted on October 7th and held in Gaza. Hamas put out a statement on its Telegram channel ahead of the release. In response to Qatari efforts, Al-Qassam Brigades released 2 American citizens, a mother and her daughter, for humanitarian reasons, and to prove to the American people and the world that the claims made by Biden and his fascist administration are false and baseless, Hamas wrote. So when people started pointing out that Shaun King is probably nuts for claiming credit, he posted this statement on Twitter, which is apparently a statement from Ben Raanan, brother of Natalie Raanan, the young hostage that was freed by Hamas. He said, Ben, a longtime supporter of mine, was the American spokesperson for the family and first reached out to me for help on October 9th, followed by a thread of receipts and records. So the statement says, "Hi everyone, I want to thank all of you for your support in this difficult time. Words cannot express the joy that I felt when the unexpected news of Judith and Natalie's release came through. However, I do need to clear up a misunderstanding that has occurred within the media. When this first happened, I reached out to activist Shaun King as I knew he had many connections within the Palestinian government. While Shaun and I do have slight disagreements politically, we both agree that human life is the most sanctified value on this earth." And then Shaun King goes on to share a bunch of screenshots of DMs and messages. Here's what he says. "Here is where Ben Raanan, the older brother of Natalie Raanan, first reached out to me for help finding and rescuing his sister. This was in the afternoon of October 9th. We spoke and texted and messaged 100 plus times after this. I'll provide those texts here. Ask him directly." So in possibly the worst English I've ever seen, here's what he said on Twitter. "In a phone conversation I just had with the family of Natalie Raanan, they relayed to me that because I was involved with her release, that Israelis pressured them to distance themselves from me. They also relayed that they do not feel safe in Israel right now as a result." So then the Jerusalem Post looks at, did King really help free the American-Israeli hostages? Many social media users have been quick to reject King's claims that he was responsible for the hostages' release. One user wrote that one of the biggest anti-Semites, Shaun King, in the United States, who calls IDF soldiers murderers, wrote on October 10th in a post that he is doing everything he can according to the request of the family of these hostages to release them. He also mentions in a post that the kidnapped support him and his opinions, and that they are in Israel to criticize Israel for the injustice that she is doing. Yesterday, he thanked Hamas for the release and took credit for it. Every prisoner that's released is a great joy, but these are circumstances you should know. Terror organizations runs a negotiation with its supporters and opponents of Israel in the world. So in other words, no actual proof that he did anything to secure their release beyond the fact that he talked with the brother. So her brother reached out on social media, they talked a bit, and now Shaun King was the one who got them released. Also, posting a massive thread of screenshots that doesn't actually prove you did something you say you did is pretty weird. And one more thing, let's say he is responsible. Then isn't their freedom enough? How narcissistic do you have to be to want everyone to know what a hero you supposedly are? Let's also not forget one obvious point. Shaun King is a complete clown. The only thing that's surprising anymore is that people are still surprised by Shaun King. A year ago on this show, I talked about him using BLM to rip people off. According to an exclusive report, Shaun King's non-profit organization took in millions of dollars in donations after the death of George Floyd in 2020. The money was supposed to go to various projects to combat racial injustice, but not much seems to have happened except for multiple six-figure payouts to Shaun King himself and allied consultants. Shaun King, just another white man profiting on black suffering. Shaun King is the same guy who got rich off BLM despite being whiter than I am. So no, I don't believe him when he claims to have secured the freedom of 2 Jewish hostages, even though he hates Israel and any Jew that doesn't agree with him, just because he texted with their brother a few times. I guess we have learned something though. White people might be just as full of themselves as people say.